Truth or Dare exposed me in front of our friends. Now everybody looks at me differently. Hello. I seem to have landed myself in a crazy situation these past 3 days. Crazy is not the right word. Horrible situation. That's more like it. So I, 24 female, recently went to a party hosted by a few of our friends with my boyfriend Frank, 24 male. That party now has the potential of destroying my life and my relationship. Frankie and I have been together since we were 16. Even though we weren't each other's first kiss, we experienced everything else with each other. I first met him when his family moved into our town. Now, our town isn't super small, but it's not huge either. We have a mall and a movie theater, but we also have a creek and local legends. What I'm trying to say was that our town was small enough to notice new people have moved in, but big enough to not care. The summer that Frank and his family moved in, I really couldn't have cared less about that. I was dealing with the divorce of my parents. I was also 12 years old, so it felt like the world was going to end just because things were changing. When school started the next semester, everyone at school was talking about the new boy. They built him up so much that when I eventually saw him during lunch, I was a little disappointed. Frank, who went by Frankie back then, was small. His feet did not reach the ground when he sat, and his head was almost completely swallowed by the huge baseball hat he had on. He was sitting completely alone. Even back then, everyone had their cliques. My parents raised me to be kind to people, especially strangers, so I walked right up to him and sat beside him. He looked surprised that someone was sitting with him. I asked him his name and he asked me his. The rest is history. As you may have guessed, Frank didn't stay small forever. The summer before high school, he suddenly grew 8 inches and put on some size. He slowly started gaining confidence. He tried out for the football team and got into junior varsity. He started getting attention from girls our age and girls a little older than us. He stopped going by Frankie and started going by Frank. By the time we turned 16, we realized that we had feelings for each other. Our friends already complained that we acted like an old married couple together. My mom loved his parents, and they were friends. Some of the people in the town already thought we were together. It just felt like a natural thing to do. Nothing changed when we got together. Only the fact that I called him my boyfriend now. Frank and I made sense together. Everyone said that. Our families, our friends, even us. Even before we got together, every time I imagined my future, Frank was in it. I was proud to be his wife, just like I was proud to be his girlfriend, just like I was proud to be his friend. Frank and I never moved out of town. Instead, we just moved into a house his grandparents owned on the outskirts of town. We never got into college either, not like we wanted to. We really didn't need to. Frank's dad owned the biggest farm in the entire tri-state area. Everyone just knew that Frank was going straight into the business after high school. Unexpectedly, his dad also offered me a job at the farm. No, I was not driving the tractors. Life was good then. Despite the little gossip from the old church ladies, Frank and I moved in together almost immediately after high school. We knew we wanted a life together, and we were so excited to start it. But naturally, we were a young couple. We had to deal with so many issues both personally in our relationship, but we overcame them. We both were extremely stubborn. We always wanted our way. Frank had a tendency to nag. I had a tendency to give cold shoulders when I was upset. It wasn't the easiest dynamic in the world, but it was ours, and we liked it. We always came out of arguments and disagreements different and better people. What no one tells you about life after high school is that life moves so fast. Consequences of not going to high school, I guess. I felt like I blinked and I was 24. My mom was talking about us getting married. His parents were talking about us getting married. Our friends were talking about us getting married. Everyone who knew us, even casually, was talking about us getting married. Frank just took it all with a smile. He would put his arm around my shoulders and just laugh it off. He'd tell everyone that we'd get married when we wanted to, when we were ready. But I was terrified. The entire concept of marriage scared me to bits. The idea of being permanently tied to someone was a suffocating thought. Every time someone brought it up, I felt my legs go weak. I hated even thinking about it. Why did a piece of paper matter so much to people anyways? Frank and I had been together for so long. We shared a home. We were part of each other's families and routines. His little cousins called me Auntie Rachel. What did it matter if we never got married? That's when Frank popped the question 2 weeks ago. I panicked. I said yes, of course. But inside, I was freaking out. Frank hugged me and kept whispering sweet promises in my ear, and all I could think was that I didn't want that. I didn't want any of that. I got away from Frank as soon as I could. He looked hurt. I think it's normal to spend the night together when your longtime boyfriend proposes. I lied and said that I had to go see my mom. As you may have guessed, I didn't go to my mom's house. I went to a bar. I specifically chose one 2 towns over. I couldn't risk anyone seeing me like this. I think I was only 1 drink in when the bartender slipped me another drink. She winked and pointed out someone in the back. When I turned, I saw who would eventually become my biggest regret. He was in one of the booths behind me. He was wearing a blue trucker hat and a Carhartt jacket. Right away, I could tell that he was a blue-collar man. He had the clothes and the look. I'd always liked that in a man. He walked over and introduced himself. His name was Josh, 25, male, and he was in town working on a plumbing project. He just wanted a drink before he had to go back to the small room he was renting from an old couple. He said he thought I looked sad and lonely. He smelt amazing. I liked his mustache. He spoke carefully, always choosing his words with care. Before I knew it, I was telling him everything. I told him that I wasn't scared of commitment per se, but the thought of marrying Frank was really scary. Josh offered to take my mind off the situation for a moment. I told him yes. He took me outside the bar and showed me his motorcycle. I know nothing about motorcycles, but it looked like an absolute death trap. Then with a grin, he asked me if I wanted a ride. My first thought was to say no, but the more I thought of it, the more I realized that I wanted to say yes. I never got to do much in my life. I never went to college. I never had a rebellious phase. Heck, I never even snuck out of the house. And now Frank wanted to lock me down before I even turned 30. I said yes. Josh just told me to hop on. That motorcycle ride was the highlight of my year. Josh wasn't even going that fast BBT, I just kept screaming. It was exhilarating. I was hugging him around the waist as he popped a wheelie. The wind was in my hair. Little droplets of rain were hitting my face, and Josh's neck was warm and smelled so good. For the entire ride, I didn't think of the entire proposal situation once. When the ride ended, Josh parked his bike right outside the bar. He grinned and asked if I enjoyed that. I did. I enjoyed it so much. Some seconds passed. Then I kissed him. He kissed me back immediately. We ended up going to a hotel together. We slept together. I won't try to justify it. I know what I did was wrong. I felt really bad afterwards. But I kept telling myself that I was just getting it out of my system before I committed to Frank forever. When I got back to my place, Frank was fast asleep. I climbed into bed and promised myself that that would be the last time something like that would ever happen. Frank and I spent the next few days telling everyone we knew the good news. We just told our families and a few of our friends, but by the end of the week, the entire town knew. It was chaos from the start. Everyone had advice for us. Have a big wedding. No, don't listen to him. Have a small wedding. No kids allowed. That's what we did. Whatever you do, don't buy a wedding dress. Just rent one. We immediately started planning. Planning a wedding was hard work. Renting a dress, buying a tuxedo, booking a hall big enough, printing out invitation cards. I don't smoke, but nothing has ever gotten me craving a cigarette like the last 2 weeks have. I probably should have said this from the start, but Frank and I have a very tight-knit friend group. I promise they are important in this story. It's just the 6 of us. We've all known each other since high school, and most of us have known each other since kindergarten. By some insane luck, all of us stayed in town and never moved out. Except for Dale, male 24, who left for college the summer after high school and never moved back. All of us, except Dale, see each other and hang out as a group pretty regularly. Don't worry, Dale was still included. We FaceTimed him as often as we could. The hangouts weren't very elaborate affairs, but we did have some rules. No partners allowed. Just us, the friends. Frank and I are the only exception, since we were already in the friend group before we started dating. Usually at someone's house, or if we were feeling really fancy, we went out to our local bar. Because of all the chaos of wedding planning and all the other little stuff, work schedules, emergency ER visits, and Annie's cousin getting married, we all weren't able to hang out for a while. Finally, when things started to calm down a little, we decided to have a small one. We all managed to set aside a Saturday night. Yep, it was Saturday 3 days ago. It felt good to see everyone again. To make things even better, or so I thought, Dale even managed to make it. It was a big surprise. Neither me nor Frank knew he was coming until he showed up at our door with a huge grin on his face. You know the great thing about having the same friends your whole life? There are no surprises. The same familiar faces telling the same familiar jokes about the same stories we've told 100 times. I'd been telling myself the entire 2 weeks that everything was fine and that nothing would change. That night was the first night that I actually allowed myself to believe that. I didn't think of Josh the entire night. I smiled. I laughed. Frank held my hand the whole night. I felt so loved and so in love. Maybe that was just the cocktail talking. Dale always made them too heavy. So when Dale said, "Let's play something," I was the one who suggested truth or dare. Everyone groaned. I think they thought we were just going to play Monopoly. Honestly, I was just speeding the night along. Yes, we usually started off with board games, but eventually it would shift into what it always shifted into when we were drunk or tipsy enough. You guessed it, truth or dare. I know how we operate. We've been playing that stupid game since we were kids. The game started out tame. Simple questions. Most people picked truth. Everyone was too drunk and comfortable to get up and do some stupid dare. I asked Dale who he had a crush on in high school. Frank asked me who I'd rather be stranded with. I asked Annie if she ever thought of leaving the group. We went round the circle like that. You get asked, then you ask someone else. I was doing okay. I hadn't embarrassed myself or someone else like I used to in high school. I thought I could get through the whole night without something crazy happening. I was wrong. When it was Dale's turn, he turned to me and asked me to pick truth or dare. I picked truth. Duh. Dale thought for a moment before he grinned. I should have known that the grin meant trouble. Have you told Frankie that you got on a motorcycle yet? The alcohol made my brain slow. I couldn't process what he said. Neither could anyone around me. Everyone said "what" at the same time before they all burst out laughing. I was in Frank's lap and I felt him shake with laughter too. Dale, you're wasted. What are you even talking about? That's when it hit me. I froze. It felt like someone dropped a weight on my chest. My heart simultaneously fell out my butt and also began beating so hard in my chest. I knew I had to get out of this somehow. I had 3 options. 1, say it was me and confess. 2, say it wasn't me and tell Dale he has no idea what he's talking about. 3, say it was me but laugh it off as a joke. I went with option 3. I fake laughed and shrugged. I said it was me. I told everyone that I just wanted to get on a motorcycle for once. Frank asked me when that happened. That's when I messed up. I said 2 weeks ago. On Saturday. Frank made a small noise in the back of his throat. When I proposed, I thought you went to your mom's house. Everything got very quiet after that. Frank went rigid behind me. I tried to laugh it off again, but then Dale said, "I don't think she was at her mom's house, Frankie. I think she's lying to you. In fact, I think she's been lying to you." I didn't even realize Frank had gone still next to me until I felt his hand slowly pull away from mine. Dale looked right at me. "Should I tell them, or do you want the honors?" I tried to keep my breathing steady. I told them I didn't know the guy in West Point. He was just a guy that let me on his motorcycle. Nothing more than that. But Dale just kept looking at me. That's when I realized something. Dale was angry. He'd been angry at me since he came in. I was so blind. I couldn't believe that I couldn't see it from the start. And then he said he had a bike, trucker hat, ring a bell? And that was it. I realized that I couldn't lie anymore. Dale had set up this entire thing to get me to confess. I just sat there, and I think that silence was worse than if someone had screamed at me. No one said anything, not even Frank. He just stood up and left the room. He didn't look at me. He didn't say a word. He just walked upstairs. The others followed, one by one. They just put on their coats and their keys from the entryway and left my house. Dale shot me a very disgusted look as he slammed the door behind him. I knew I only had that night to save my relationship. Frank was probably upstairs packing up his stuff. I ran upstairs as fast as I could. Frank wasn't in the bedroom. He wasn't in his workshop. I heard the shower running. I banged on the door as loud as I could. Frank didn't answer. I started begging and crying. I just wanted to talk to him. I just needed him to open the door so I could explain everything to him. I stood there begging for 5 minutes before I realized that the door was open. I pushed it open. The shower was running, but Frank wasn't there. I realized that Frank must have left the shower running so I'd think he was home. We had a staircase that led to the upstairs balcony. I ran there. Just as I thought, the door was wide open. I looked down into the driveway. His car was gone too. It's been 3 days since then. Frank hasn't come home. At least our friends are answering my texts. Annie told me that Frank had gone to that bar that night to confirm Dale's story. The bartender told him the truth. Yes, a woman matching my description was in the bar 2 weeks ago. Yes, a handsome guy in a trucker hat chatted her up. Yes, they left for a bit. No idea where they went. Yes, they came back and made out right outside the bar in her line of sight. I really don't know what to do. Yes, my friends are still talking to me, but they are also very angry. They also won't tell me where Frank is. Although I am 99% sure that he's staying at Annie and George, I don't even blame him. I would do the same if Frank did something like this to me. I don't know if the wedding's still going on. It will be very embarrassing to call off an engagement. So, I'm coming here for advice. I need to get Frank to understand where I'm coming from. Has anyone on here been in a similar situation? I know it's not a typical cheating story, but I still would really like someone to tell me what to do. Anyone? Comments. Commenter 1. I don't know if the wedding's still going on. It will be very embarrassing to call off an engagement. I'm confused. Isn't that what you wanted? This is like the perfect ending for you. Commenter 2. You're scared of marriage, but you want Frank in your life? You also don't want to call off the engagement? Seems like you don't know what you want, lady. Update, 3 months later. Hey everyone, I have no idea if anyone would even be interested in an update. It's been so long, I know. It's just been a wild few months. Nothing has gone my way. I haven't had a win in so long. But I've gotten a few DMs from people asking for an update, so I figured I may as well. Frank has left me, which I'm pretty sure you all must have guessed. The day after I wrote that post, Frank showed up. I was so happy. I hugged him. He just pushed me off him and went upstairs. I followed him and watched as he started packing up stuff from our closet. At first, I thought he was packing up his stuff. Then I realized he was packing up my stuff. I was stunned. I never considered that Frank would kick me out. Whenever I would run the possibilities in my mind, I never imagined that I would be the one to leave the house. No idea why. It seems stupid now in hindsight. Anyways, as I stood there shocked, Frank finished packing my stuff. It was when he got to the stairs that I shook myself out of it. I tried to grab the suitcase out of his hand, but Frank was a really strong guy. He just shrugged me off. He threw my stuff outside. I was determined not to cry in front of our neighbors. I refused to. I just picked up my stuff and drove over to my mom's house. She was so angry. She spent an entire hour berating me. I guess I should have seen that one coming. Mom always liked Frank more than me. She liked that being in a relationship with him gave our family some prestige in the town. I was too tired to even argue with her. That night I slept in my childhood bedroom, overwhelmed with emotion. I was so sad. I called Frank like 1,000 times. He didn't pick. I left so many voicemails. I called all our friends. They all said variants of the same thing. Sorry he kicked you out, but you kind of deserved it. I love you, but we love him too. I stayed with my mom for a couple of days before I decided I couldn't just rot in bed all day. So I pulled myself off one Monday and went to work. There were a lot of stares and whispers when I walked in. I guess everyone knew now. I became angry at Frank. He just couldn't keep something like this a secret. I'm sure he told his mom, and she told everyone else. That gossip, she never liked me. Never. I just kept my head high and kept telling myself that I was there to work. When I got to my office, I did a double take. Frank was sitting in my chair. He didn't look surprised to see me. It was as if he expected me to show up. That's what happens when you've known someone for so long. They know you so well, they can predict what day and time you'll show up to work. His dad was also there in the corner. He looked away in disgust when he saw me. That one hurt. We'd always had a great relationship. He saw me as a daughter. I saw him as a dad. Now he wouldn't look me in the eye. Frank smiled at me, not warmly, but meaner. Welcome to the meeting. I was floored. Meeting? The heck did that mean? The meeting didn't last long. Long story short, I was fired. When I protested, Frank and his dad reminded me that they gave me the job and I never earned it in the first place. What could I say to that? They were right. I only got the job because I was with Frank. Now that this has happened, I guess my job doesn't exist anymore. I left that office disgraced. Frank didn't even give me a box to hold all my stuff in like in the movies. I just gathered them up in my arms. Everyone stared as I left. Some even laughed. When I got home, my mom was crying at the table. In her hands were divorce papers. I cried, not going to lie. I couldn't believe my marriage was ending over Josh. Some guy I didn't even know. I didn't even know if his name was actually Josh. So here we are. Thankfully, I still have my friends, but they all side with Frank. They've made that very clear. I'm still living with my mom. She's still angry at me for messing up her chance at a good life. But whatever. Imagine how I feel. I'm angry at myself every single day. I'm broke and jobless while everyone in my town hates me for what I did. Frank just ignores me. I tried talking to him a few times after I got the papers, but he just pretended like I wasn't there. It hurts when the man you love doesn't love you back anymore. That's it. Nothing left to say. Thanks to anyone who read this. It was nice to have somewhere to vent. I guess I'll see you all later. Bye.